Queen Camilla had entered the private jewelry briefing, expecting a routine discussion about royal heirlooms. Instead, one sentence changed the atmosphere completely. Before King Charles, Prince William and Catherine could react, the jewelers confirmed that the Queen Mother's treasured pearl tiara had not been left to the reigning Queen Consort. It had been personally reserved for Kate. Camilla's expression hardened, her chair moved sharply against the floor, and moments later, she walked out. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles watched the silence settle around them. Buckingham Palace had arranged the meeting to settle the ownership and ceremonial future of jewels linked to the late Queen Mother, the former queen and family matriarch, whose choices still carried weight after her death. William and Catherine attended because some pieces were tied to the future reign of the Prince and Princess of Wales, titles given to the heir and his wife. Camilla did not blink. The senior jeweler opened a sealed ownership entry and explained that the pearl tiara had been reserved for Catherine, not loaned to her or placed inside the working collection of the current Queen Consort. The distinction mattered. A temporary loan could be recalled, but a personal designation meant the late matriarch had chosen who should hold the piece. "Repeat that," Camilla said. The jeweler obeyed through a documented account prepared for the meeting. He stated that the instruction had been recorded years before Catherine married William. The wording did not name a bride. It identified the future Princess of Wales, suggesting the Queen Mother had preserved the tiara for the woman who would one day stand beside the next king. Catherine remained seated, her hands still, her face tight with discomfort. She showed no triumph. Kate understood that accepting the tiara could look like victory, yet refusing it could insult the woman who made the decision. William noticed her unease and watched Camilla, knowing the moment had become more personal than expected. Charles shifted before the jeweler finished. The king had known the ownership was complicated, but his hesitation exposed something deeper. He had not expected the answer to be delivered with such finality in front of his wife, his son, and the future queen. Camilla pushed back her chair. She removed one glove, placed it beside the sealed entry, and looked at Charles without speaking. Then the Queen Consort turned and left before the meeting ended. Camilla had walked away from the tiara, but she could not walk away from what its ownership seemed to say about her place within the royal family. The pearl tiara was valuable, but money was not what made the confirmation devastating. For Camilla, it represented acceptance she believed she had finally earned. For Catherine, it carried the burden of inheriting a symbol she had never requested. William saw another test of whether his wife would be respected. Charles faced the cruelest position of all, protecting his queen while confronting a decision made by the grandmother whose approval once defined royal legitimacy. Camilla had spent years moving from royal outsider to Queen Consort, the title given to the wife of a reigning king. Every ceremony, every jewel, and every place beside Charles had carried a deeper meaning for her. Those symbols suggested that the institution had finally accepted the woman it once resisted. Losing the pearl tiara, therefore, felt less like losing an object, and more like being reminded that some doors had never fully opened. Catherine felt the pressure from the opposite direction. Her position as the future queen meant historic jewelry was increasingly tied to her public role, even when she wanted no rivalry with another royal woman. In the corridor outside the briefing room, Kate turned to William and admitted that she never wanted the tiara to become a weapon against Camilla. William refused to soften his answer. The prince told his wife that surrendering the piece would not create peace. It would dishonor the Queen Mother's wishes and teach the palace that Catherine's inheritance could be taken whenever someone more powerful felt wounded. He understood her compassion, but he also saw the danger hidden inside it. Charles found Camilla alone in an adjoining sitting room. The king closed the door and waited, but she spoke before he could explain. She asked whether he had known Kate would receive the tiara, and why he had allowed the truth to be delivered in front of William, Catherine, and the jewelers. Camilla's voice remained controlled, yet the hurt underneath it was unmistakable. Charles reached toward her, but she stepped away. The Queen Consort told him the issue was no longer jewelry. It was whether the family still viewed her as temporary, even after she had stood beside him as queen. William soon uncovered a troubling detail. A royal dresser confirmed through a private recorded conversation that measurements and restoration work had recently been requested for Camilla. Someone had expected the pearl tiara to enter her official collection before the upcoming diplomatic banquet. Catherine heard the account and immediately understood why the confirmation had struck so hard. Camilla had not merely imagined wearing the tiara. Preparations had already begun. William then asked the question no one wanted answered: who had authorized the restoration? The confrontation had not begun with the jeweler's announcement. It had begun weeks earlier, during a ceremony where one unexpected request crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. 3 weeks before Camilla walked out, the palace had been preparing for a major Commonwealth banquet. Dresses were chosen, seating was approved, and historic jewels were assigned. Then the Queen Consort made one private request. She wanted the Queen Mother's pearl tiara removed from storage and fitted for her appearance that evening. The request appeared ceremonial and harmless. Yet when the royal jewelers opened the collection ledger, they discovered an instruction that transformed a wardrobe decision into a constitutional family crisis. Camilla believed the choice made perfect sense. A Commonwealth banquet was a formal dinner held for representatives from nations historically linked to the crown, and every detail carried meaning. Palace staff selected jewels according to diplomatic symbolism, family history, and the seniority of the royal woman wearing them. The Queen Mother's pearls would therefore do more than complete an outfit. They would connect the current Queen Consort to a matriarch whose approval still shaped royal memory. Camilla called the chief royal dresser into her private office and made the request herself. She wanted the tiara inspected, resized, and placed with her evening collection before the final banquet rehearsal. The Queen spoke calmly, but the dresser hesitated long enough for the mood to change. The dresser admitted that the piece had never been formally transferred into Camilla's working collection, the group of jewels regularly available for her official duties. She explained that removing it from storage required confirmation from the royal jewelers. Camilla immediately demanded a written clarification, convinced that the delay came from outdated paperwork rather than a direct restriction. Catherine learned about the request through a private conversation with William. Kate refused to intervene. She told him she would not fight his stepmother over an object tied to a dead relative, especially when every disagreement between them risked becoming a public contest between the present queen and the future one. William understood her restraint, but he sensed danger. The prince asked the jewelers to examine the original collection ledger, the official record showing where important royal pieces belonged and who could use them. What they found was not a forgotten note. It was a deliberate instruction. The entry linked the pearl tiara to William's future wife once she became Princess of Wales, the title traditionally held by the woman married to the direct heir. A second notation went even further. It warned that the piece must never be absorbed into another consort's permanent collection. Camilla's office had expected tradition to support her claim. Instead, tradition had closed the door. Charles could have settled the matter quietly. The king chose another path. He ordered Camilla, Catherine, William, and the jewelers into the same room, believing honesty would prevent resentment. The banquet request exposed the hidden instruction, but it was Charles's decision to reveal the truth face to face that turned private disappointment into open royal conflict. The room was silent after the first confirmation, but Camilla refused to accept silence as an answer. She leaned forward, fixed her attention on the senior jeweler, and demanded that he explain precisely why the Queen Mother's tiara belonged to Catherine. Charles tried to slow the exchange. William remained guarded. Kate looked trapped between sympathy and duty. Then the jeweler opened the ledger, pointed to the decisive entry, and repeated the conclusion with devastating clarity. Charles raised one hand and called the dispute an administrative misunderstanding. The king hoped calm language would stop the meeting from becoming personal, but everyone already knew it was personal. The chief jeweler explained that custodianship meant legal responsibility for a piece, ceremonial access meant permission to wear it, and personal designation meant the original owner had chosen a specific future holder. The pearl tiara belonged to the strictest category. Camilla turned toward Catherine. The Queen Consort asked whether she had known the inheritance was hers before entering the room. Kate answered carefully. She had learned the full truth only that morning, when William showed her the documented account prepared by the jewelers. The princess added that she had not requested the tiara and had never asked for Camilla to be denied it. Camilla heard restraint, but she also heard finality. She suggested Catherine could voluntarily release the piece and allow the current queen to wear it. William stepped in before his wife could answer. The prince said Kate should not be pressured into correcting an assumption made by another royal office. Surrender might look generous, he warned, but it would still erase the Queen Mother's decision. Camilla removed one glove and placed it beside the open ledger. Her voice sharpened. "Say it again without palace language." The jeweler did not look away. He explained through the signed collection record that the Queen Mother had reserved the pearl tiara for Catherine's future role as Princess of Wales. He then revealed that an earlier attempt to reclassify the piece had already been rejected because the original instruction carried her personal seal, a mark showing that the order came directly from her. Charles finally understood the trap. Overriding the designation would not be a quiet family favor. It would mean publicly dismissing a direct wish from the Queen Mother, risking anger inside the household and beyond it. Camilla stood. She looked at Charles and told him he had already chosen which woman the institution valued more. Then she turned and walked out. The door closed behind Camilla, and every person remaining understood that the next decision belonged not to the jewelers, but to the king. King Charles remained seated after Camilla left, staring at the glove she had abandoned beside the ledger. No royal advisor could make the choice disappear. If he reassigned the tiara, he would protect his wife from humiliation, but violate the Queen Mother's recorded intention. If he upheld Catherine's ownership, he would confirm the very fear Camilla had carried from the moment she entered royal life. That acceptance could still be withdrawn when history, succession, and public memory stood against her. Charles knew the crown gave him broad control over the royal collection, the group of historic jewels held for official use by the monarchy. Yet personally designated pieces stood apart because they carried the clear wishes of the original owner. Changing that status would create legal doubt, family anger, and a public impression that the king had rewritten history to spare his wife. William's position made the decision even harder. The pearl tiara had been linked to his future consort, meaning the woman expected to stand beside him when he became king. The prince therefore saw the issue as more than inheritance. It touched succession, family trust, and whether Catherine's future role could be weakened whenever the present household felt threatened. Charles turned to his son and asked whether Kate might lend the tiara to Camilla for the banquet. William answered without raising his voice. "A loan given under pressure might appear generous to the public," he said, "but inside the family, it would feel like surrender." The future king refused to let his wife carry the burden of hiding another office's mistake. Catherine broke the silence softly. She told Charles she would rather never wear the pearls than become the reason for a permanent fracture between him and Camilla. Kate's reluctance moved the monarch, because it revealed the cruelty of the choice. The woman receiving the tiara did not want victory, while the woman losing it felt defeated. Charles waited until William and Catherine left. The king then closed the ledger, rested one hand on its cover, and summoned his private secretary. Through a documented briefing, the official revealed that Camilla's office had already listed the pearl tiara in preliminary banquet planning. Its sudden removal would now be difficult to conceal from dressers, aides, and event staff. The warning ended all hope of a quiet compromise. Charles signed a royal directive, a formal instruction issued under the monarch's authority, confirming Catherine as the designated custodian. He also ordered that only the jewelers could control the tiara's immediate release, preventing either household from moving it without approval. The decision protected the inheritance. It also deepened the wound. Camilla learned of the directive before Charles could reach her. Within minutes, she withdrew from her next major engagement. Charles had protected the Queen Mother's instruction, yet by the time he went to find his wife, the consequences were already spreading beyond the palace walls. The first consequence appeared not in a statement, but in an empty chair. Camilla was expected beside Charles at a reception for senior Commonwealth representatives. Her place card remained, the musicians began, and guests waited for the Queen Consort to enter. She never did. Behind closed doors, she had learned that the king signed the custody directive in Catherine's favor. For the first time since becoming queen, Camilla withdrew from a major appearance because she could not hide what she felt. Palace staff moved quickly to describe the absence as a scheduling change. The explanation satisfied no one. A Commonwealth reception brought together senior figures from nations connected to the crown, so the Queen's place beside the monarch carried diplomatic meaning as well as family symbolism. Her last-minute withdrawal, therefore, looked less like inconvenience and more like a public rupture. Camilla stood before the final preparations and told her dresser to return every item selected for the evening. The Queen watched as attendants removed the necklace, the earrings, and finally, the last jewelry case. She said nothing after that. Her silence frightened the people around her more than anger would have. Charles called from a private corridor before entering the reception. The king asked her to reconsider, warning that the empty place would attract more attention than any tense appearance beside Catherine. Camilla refused. She told him that standing next to Kate while everyone knew the tiara had been confirmed in her favor would turn private humiliation into a public performance. Catherine entered the reception under immediate scrutiny. The princess understood why every glance moved from her to the unoccupied chair. Kate had gained legal custody of the pearls, yet the victory brought no satisfaction. It made her look central to another woman's pain. Charles reached the table and paused beside Camilla's chair. The monarch adjusted it toward the place setting, as though correcting its position might somehow reduce the absence. Then he continued greeting guests, but the strain in his voice made clear that the royal evening had already fractured. William soon learned through a recorded household briefing that several members of Camilla's staff were discussing whether she should surrender every jewel connected to the Queen Mother. The prince recognized the danger at once. What began with one tiara could become a wider rejection of royal history, deepening resentment on both sides. Catherine acted before the argument spread. She sent Camilla a private message, offering to meet without staff, advisors, or husbands. Hours passed without an answer. Near midnight, Camilla finally replied. The Queen agreed, but only on one condition. Kate must come alone. The public fallout had exposed the fracture, but the fate of the family would be decided in a private room, where neither woman could hide behind rank. There were no aides, no legal files, and no husbands in the room when Catherine finally met Camilla. The pearl tiara remained locked away elsewhere, yet its presence seemed to fill every silence between them. Kate did not arrive to claim victory. Camilla did not begin with an apology. For several moments, the two women simply faced one another as future queen and current queen consort. Then Catherine placed a small jewelry key on the table and made an offer Camilla never expected. Catherine had chosen a private sitting room far from the main royal apartments. She wanted no interruption and no chance for the discussion to become an official negotiation. A royal apartment was a formal living space used by senior family members. But this room carried none of that weight. Here, the princess could speak as a woman rather than as the future queen. Camilla entered guarded and exhausted. The queen consort believed Kate had come to offer sympathy, after securing the inheritance, and sympathy was the last thing she wanted. She had spent years proving her loyalty to Charles, the crown, and a family that once viewed her as an intrusion. Now one tiara had reopened every old wound. Camilla finally broke the silence through a private, recorded conversation authorized only for the family archive. She admitted that walking out had never been about losing jewelry. It was about feeling that decades of service could still be erased by one reminder that she had never been the intended woman. Catherine listened without defending herself. Kate said, accepting the pearls did not make her more worthy, and refusing them would not heal the pain Camilla had carried through years of public judgment. The princess understood that surrender might look kind, but kindness built on denial would only delay the next conflict. Catherine then placed the access key between them. She offered Camilla the right to accompany her when the tiara was removed from storage, so the moment would be shared rather than hidden. The offer did not change ownership. It changed the meaning of the handover. Camilla stared at the key before confessing something deeper. The queen had planned to wear the pearls because she believed the queen mother's image could finally silence doubts about her legitimacy. For one night, she wanted history to appear to accept her. Catherine refused to give up the tiara. Kate also promised it would never be used as a symbol of victory over Camilla. Compassion, she made clear, did not require surrender. Camilla returned the key. She agreed to attend the next engagement and asked Charles to release the true ownership decision before rumor turned pain into scandal. The two women left without becoming friends or enemies, but their private honesty gave the palace something it had lacked from the beginning: a truthful way to face the public. By morning, the palace could no longer contain the story. Camilla's empty chair had been photographed from several angles. Catherine's restrained expression had been replayed across broadcasts, and the unexplained absence had become a national mystery. Then, one front page transformed speculation into certainty. Beneath a large image of the Queen Mother wearing the pearl tiara, a headline declared that her final jewelry wish had favored Britain's future queen. Crowds soon gathered outside Buckingham Palace, waiting for an answer. Broadcasters quickly connected Camilla's withdrawal from the Commonwealth reception with the jewelry meeting held earlier that day. The reception mattered because it brought together representatives from nations tied to the crown, making the Queen Consort's absence more than a private family issue. It looked like a public break inside the monarchy at the very moment unity was expected. Palace officials worked on a formal statement. The document would confirm that the tiara's designation had been settled and that Catherine intended to respect its historic conditions. A formal palace statement is an official message released on behalf of the royal household, and every word carried risk. Too little detail would feed suspicion. Too much would expose the family's pain. Camilla watched the coverage alone. The Queen heard commentators describe her walkout as jealousy and wounded pride. Each judgment reduced years of struggle to one dramatic exit. She understood then how quickly private hurt could become public condemnation, especially when the story involved Kate and the Queen Mother. Catherine felt no relief. The princess became distressed as supporters celebrated the ruling as a victory over Camilla. Kate had promised the tiara would never be used as a weapon, yet public opinion was already turning it into one. William saw her discomfort and reminded her that silence would allow others to define the meaning. Outside Buckingham Palace, one moment captured the mood. A woman held up a photograph of the Queen Mother beside one of Catherine and told a live broadcaster, "It has passed forward, not sideways." The phrase spread across evening coverage and hardened the belief that history had chosen the future queen. Then the palace statement changed everything. Camilla had approved the confirmed custodianship. The Queen Consort would not challenge or delay the decision. Critics who expected open resistance were forced to reconsider. Charles appeared with Camilla at a scheduled engagement later that day. The king stayed close as she approached Catherine. The queen paused beside Kate, greeted her warmly, and ended rumors of an immediate royal boycott. The public crisis had been contained. One question remained. Would Catherine wear the pearl tiara and claim the moment, or leave it untouched? The monarchy had survived the public storm, but the final verdict would come through Catherine's choice about what the tiara should represent from that moment onward. Catherine did not wear the Queen Mother's pearl tiara at the next banquet. She chose another piece, and allowed the disputed heirloom to remain in its case. The decision was neither fear nor surrender. It was a declaration that ownership did not require immediate display, and inheritance did not need to become triumph. Camilla entered beside Charles. William stood beside his wife, and the family faced the room together. The crisis ended not because anyone forgot the wound, but because each person accepted its truth. Catherine remained the lawful and ceremonial custodian of the pearl tiara. A custodian is the person officially trusted to protect, manage, and use an important royal object under its original conditions. The record stayed unchanged because the Queen Mother's intention had been clear. Kate would hold the piece for the future, and no private disappointment could erase that decision. Charles refused to rewrite the designation. The king understood that royal heritage depended on trust between generations. If a monarch could overturn every clear family wish for personal comfort, then historic promises would become meaningless. He protected Camilla's dignity where he could, but he would not protect it by rewriting the past. Camilla finally accepted what the tiara could never give her. The Queen Consort had hoped the pearls would prove that history welcomed her, yet no jewel could silence every doubt or heal every old wound. She stopped treating the Queen Mother's collection as a test of legitimacy and began facing a harder truth. Her place beside Charles had to stand on service, loyalty, and the life they had built together. Catherine also made her choice clear. The princess protected the inheritance without displaying it as a victory. Before the banquet, Kate visited Camilla privately and explained that the tiara would first be worn at a future event honoring royal women across generations. She would not introduce it at an occasion where its appearance could deepen their rivalry. William understood the meaning immediately. The prince realized that the Queen Mother had not simply chosen one woman over another. She had preserved a symbol for the future line of the monarchy, ensuring that the pearls would move forward with the role they were meant to represent. Charles entered the banquet with Camilla beside him. The king remained close, and she did not withdraw. Catherine stood with William, carrying the inheritance without turning it into a weapon. The current queen and the future one were no longer fighting over what the tiara meant. Camilla's walkout exposed a wound that royal titles could never fully heal. Yet the resolution proved that the crown survives not by denying painful truths, but by accepting them with dignity. Kate inherited the pearls, Camilla retained her place beside the king, and the monarchy emerged with its history respected rather than rewritten. The tiara remained locked away, but its message was settled forever. Royal inheritance belonged to the future, while true dignity belonged to those strong enough to accept the past. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.